Hola, soy yo, Vicky, otra vez, and thank you for watching this video. Hope it helps you with your journey learning Spanish. What we're going to look at today is a past tense. Well, sort of. Now, the reason I say that is this tense that we're going to look at today, we know it as the present perfect. And the reason it's the present perfect is it's actually half made up of the present and half made up of the past. So it actually straddles two time zones. So that sounds confusing, but let me explain it hopefully a bit better and you'll understand it better. If we take it in English first, so it's always a good idea to take these tenses, etc., explain things in English first, so that people actually understand what I mean by it in English before we even try and look at how we do it in Spanish. So this is what we would use in English when we want to talk about something we have done. So, I have been to the shops. I have worked all week. I have bought a car, something we have done or haven't done. Yeah, I haven't worked all week. I haven't bought a car. I haven't been to the shops. So what we mean by this is the have done tense or the present perfect normally relates to something that either we started doing it in the past and we're still doing it in the present. For example, I have lived in Spain for 20 years. So that tells us that I started living in Spain quite a long time ago, but I am still living here. Have lived is different from I lived in Spain for 20 years, which suggests that I don't live there anymore. Also, we use it for things we have just done. Things that we've done in a period of time that's not finished yet. So this week I have bought a car. Yeah. So it'd be something we've done in this week, not last week. Or it'd be something that we've just recently done, like I have had my lunch. That would tell you, if I said to you, oh, I've had my lunch, that I won't be talking about my lunch 2 weeks ago, I'd be talking about my lunch today. So have done suggests either something we started in the past and are still doing, or it tells us something that we have recently done. So in English, we don't even think we're conjugating verbs when we just say these things. But actually what we are doing is we're conjugating verbs in the present perfect, but our brains are doing it without even thinking about it. And what we do is we take the verb to have, I have, you have, he, she, it has, we have, yous have, they have. And then we add the past, what's called in grammar, the past participle of what we have done. Now that sounds confusing, but all a past participle is we take in English for regular past participles, we take the verb for what we've done and we add ed. So, I have walked to the beach. I have danced all night. I have wanted a car for a long time. So we just take the verb and add ed. However, there are quite a lot of irregular English past participles as well, because we don't say, I have eaten my lunch. We say, I have eaten my lunch. So we don't say, I have been to the shops. We say I have been to the shops. So there are irregular ones in English too, but what we're going to look at first of all in Spanish are the regular verbs in this tense, and then in another tutorial we'll look at the irregular ones. Now bear in mind, just because a verb is irregular in English doesn't mean it's necessarily irregular in Spanish, and vice versa. So they're unique languages they have their own irregular verbs. So it doesn't necessarily follow that a verb that will be irregular in English will also be irregular in Spanish. So we just have to learn the Spanish ones separately. Okay, so yeah, so if I want to make this tense in English, I'm using the verb to have. That's what I'm conjugating, putting into the persons. The past participle doesn't change whichever person it is. So whether it's I have wanted, you have wanted, he, she, it has wanted, we have wanted, yous have wanted, they have wanted. The wanted doesn't change, and that is the same in Spanish. So when we come to make this tense in Spanish, we don't use the verb to have that you're probably thinking about at the moment. The verb tener, which is to have, as in have a car, have a house, have a husband, have a wife. No, we don't use that one. We use a special verb to have, which is only used to make other tenses as have. So this verb is haber, and it's spelt Haber. So it looks like it should be haber, but of course we don't pronounce the H, so it's haber. This is the verb to have, the auxiliary verb to have. Now, what it means when it's an auxiliary verb is it's a helper verb. It's only used to make other tenses. So you would not use this verb to talk about have a house, I have a car, etc. That is tener. This verb is just what you have done. So let's conjugate it. So if you have the book, we're on page 13, break the language barrier level 2. But you don't need the book. You can follow the tutorial perfectly well. I'm just pointing out the page number for people who do have the book and like to follow it as they go along. So page 13 is where we are in break the language barrier level 2. And I think on page 13 is just explained more or less how we do it in English, which I've just explained. So I'm going on to page 14, which explains more about how we do this tense in Spanish. So we've got the verb to have in English, as I explained, which is I have, you have, he, she, it has, we have, yous have, they have. Now, but it's also important to remember that quite often in English we use an apostrophe here, and we don't say I have, we say I've, or you've, he's, we've, they've. So instead of saying they have, we shorten it to they've. So just bear that in mind, because sometimes that's something that sometimes throws people as well, because they don't think of it as a verb. Okay. Anyway, when we look at it in Spanish, so as I say, we're taking this verb haber, and it's a very strange little conjugation. So bearing in mind we don't pronounce the H. So it's has, a, hemos, habéis, an. But there is a H when you come to write it, there's a H with each of those. Has, a, hemos, habéis, an. That's our have bit, okay? So then when we want to make the past participle of the main verb, the thing that we have done, for AR verbs, we take off the AR. So if we take hablar as an example, so we take off the AR at the end of the verb and we add ado. So hablar is to speak, spoken is hablado. So if I wanted to say, I have spoken to Juan, I would say, he hablado con Juan. Bear in mind, we always speak with people in Spanish. That's why it's con. Then there are verbs, such as the verb aprender, which is the verb that's the example here in the book. Again, we take off the ER, and this time we add ideal. So, learnt, aprender is to learn. Learnt is aprendido. So if I wanted to say, I have learnt a lot of Spanish, I would say, he aprendido mucho español. If I want to say, we have learnt a lot of Spanish, The aprendido doesn't change. What changes is the H verb. So it would be hemos. We have aprendido mucho español. So the past participle never changes. What changes is the haber verb. And then an IR verb such as vivir, this is the same as the ER verbs. We take off the IO and we add ido. So vivir is to live. So lived, vivido. So if I wanted to say I have lived in Spain for actually 22 years now, I would say he vivido en España por 22 años. Okay, ¿sí? ¿Comprendes? Bueno, if you don't understand, as I always say, if you don't understand anything that I explain on these videos and you want some clarification, please send me an email. I'll be happy to reply. Also, anything that you do that you don't understand why you've got a different answer to me or anything whatsoever, or indeed if there's anything you particularly want explaining on a YouTube video, please just let me know and I'll be happy to help. So we're going to look at practice A now. Again, we're still on page 14, which is just some examples using regular verbs in the present perfect. So remember, it's composed of two verbs, yeah? The have bit, which is the haber verb, and the past participle of the main verb, whatever it is you have done. So, number one, how long have you worked here? So, that's the English. How long have you worked here? So, we would say, ¿cuánto tiempo? How long? Or literally, it's how much time. Have you, has, H-A-S, worked, trabajado? So, we're taking the trabajar, take off the AR, add on ado, and then here, aquí. ¿Cuánto tiempo has trabajado aquí? Número dos. So this is quite a long sentence. Today I have washed the car and cleaned the house, and my husband has watched the television. So we would say, hoy, that's today, he lavado, I have washed, el coche, y limpiado, and you could say the again, but you don't need to. So you could either say, hoy he lavado el coche y he limpiado la casa, or just limpiado. Y mi marido, and my husband, ha mirado, has watched the television, la televisión. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, why can't I use ver for watching the television? Which you can, but that's one of the irregular verbs, so that's why I've not used it here, because we're just using regular verbs, and we'll see in the next section, when we come to the irregular verbs, what happens with ver. Okay, so número tres. This year we have read lots of different books. So this year, este año, then we have hemos, H-E-M-O-S, read, so past participle of the verb leer, leer. So you're taking off the ER and adding ido, so it becomes leído. So este año hemos leído muchos libros, and then diferentes, distintos, different ways you could say different. Vale. Y número cuatro, this week, so esta semana, she has paid, ha pagado. Now, you might want to put in the ella to make it clear that it's she. So, esta semana, ella ha pagado €200, 200 euros. Por libros, so that's exchange and trade. I will be doing por and para in a future video. People always say to me, "Oh, can you just explain to me what's the difference between por and para?" And unfortunately, the answer is no, because it's not a quick explanation, unfortunately. But I have tried to condense it, and I will be doing a video on that in the future. So in this particular case, it's por libros because it's exchange or trade. So whenever it's an exchange or trade, it's por. And then para el colegio, because that's the purpose or the final destination of the books. There's a couple of different reasons why you might say you're using para, but it is para. So this year she has paid €200 for books for school. Will be esta semana ella ha pagado €200 por libros para la escuela o para el colegio. Either of those is fine. Vale. Número 5. Have yous eaten yet? So it's the you plural. When I say yous, I mean you lot. So, habéis comido? Have yous eaten? Now, for yet, there's a couple of different things you could say. You could say todavía or ya. Número 6, where are they? That would be donde están, location, so it's estar. They have gone to the shops. So they have is han, H-A-N, and gone, we take the verb to go, which is ir. We take off the IR, which basically is the whole verb. So we're just left with nothing, and we then add the ido. So that is the past participle of the verb ir, ido. So, han ido a las tiendas. They have gone to the shops. So the whole thing, where are they? They have gone to the shops. ¿Dónde están? Han ido a las tiendas. Número 7, he has drank too much beer and eaten too much chocolate. So, we might want to put in the L to make it clear that it's he. Él ha bebido demasiada cerveza demasiado cerveza y comido demasiado chocolate. ¿Vale? Número 8, I have bought my clothes here for 13 years. So the verb to buy is comprar. So it's I have bought, so it's H-E for the I have. Comprado, past participle of comprar. Mi ropa or mis ropas, either is okay. Aquí. Then for 13 years, you can either say por, it would be por because a period of time is always por, never para. Or you could also use durante. Personally, I prefer durante because then you don't have to think if it's por or para. So, he comprado mis ropas o mi ropa aquí durante o por, but not para, 13 años. Y número 9, have you washed the dishes yet? So, has lavado, have you washed? Los platos todavía? So, have you washed the dishes yet? Has lavado los platos todavía? You can also use fregar there. Has fregado los platos todavía? Y número 10, which I hope is true for all of you, we have studied a lot of Spanish this month. So we have studied hemos estudiado, and then a lot of Spanish, mucho español, este mes. So hemos estudiado mucho español este mes. Vale, ya está. So, for the have part of this tense, we use the verb haber, has, ha, hemos, habéis, han. plus the past participle of whatever it is we have done. And to make the past participle in Spanish, AR verbs you add ado, ER verbs you add ido, and also IR verbs you add ido. And that's what we do with regular verbs in the present perfect or the have done tense in Spanish. Vale, ya está. So, I hope you've found that video useful for understanding the present perfect. If you have, please, as always, give me the thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed yet, please subscribe so then you'll receive notification of whenever there's a new video out. So there's lots of past tenses coming up now as I work through the level 2 book. And this is where people tend to find past tenses difficult. So if you're struggling with your past tenses, please subscribe for the videos, because hopefully you'll find that I certainly try to explain things in the simplest way possible. And, you know, over many years experience teaching, I know the problem, apart from the fact of having to learn it when I learned it myself, I do understand the problems that people have with past tenses. The main problem being really is distinguishing tenses if you haven't learnt a language before, because we tend to think we don't use tenses in our language. People have actually said that to me. You know, why do they have all these tenses in Spanish? We don't have them. But of course we do have them, we just don't have to think about them. So we have to learn them in English first, or whatever our first language is. And this is where sometimes students that I've had who are English, all my students are English speaking because I teach Spanish through English, but not all my students are English or British. So, but sometimes that's an advantage that they've had, because the one thing they've had to do is learn English. And so quite often they understand at least the concept of grammar and how it works. And that is a big advantage. Anyway, I'll do my best to explain it as simply as possible. Ya está, I'm rambling on again, but anyway, vale. So keep practicing y hasta la próxima. Adiós.